Okay, as mentioned, this afternoon's topic is the Four Noble Truths or Chattari Arya Sachani. Okay, continue with the lesson 7. I'll give a short history before we go directly into the Four Noble Truths. At least we have a background as to how it came about without too much detail. As usual, at the bottom of most of these pages, I will have the sutta references mentioned, and also the Tipitaka reference, which which was given in the long list at the beginning of this afternoon sharing. And you can also read the whole sutta if you so wish. Now here, the Buddha was recalling when he was Prince Siddhartha in the palace at Kapilavatthu. So before my awakening, he mentions I was unawakened, but intent on awakening. Now, clearly, when a person says that that he or she is unawakened and intent on awakening, this person is likely a bodhisattva. That means a person who wants to be a fully enlightened person. So he mentions life at home is cramped and dirty. Life gone forth is wide open. It's not easy for someone living at home to lead the spiritual life utterly full and pure, like a polished shell. Why don't I shave my hair and beard, dress in ogre robes, and go forth from the lay life to the homelessness? Now, this aspect of renunciation is very, very common in northern India in those days. So whether you're a rich man, royalty, or whatever, a lot of them have this kind of thinking, and they can just leave and go renounce from the home life into homelessness. So continuing, sometime later, while still with pristine black hair, blessed with youth in the prime of life, though my mother and father wished otherwise, weeping with tearful faces, I shaved off my hair and beard, dressed in augur robes, and went forth from the lay life to homelessness. Now, this paragraph here is repeated in a few other suttas that describe what they call the Prince Siddhartha's intent and later renunciation. Unlike the what they call the romanticized version of the stories, frequently depicted in the Borobudur carvings that talk about him in the middle of the night, go and churi or steal away from the palace and so on. That is the romanticized version. But this here, I'm quoting directly from the sutta. So that means the parents knew, okay, the father knew and the stepmother knew that he wanted to renounce the world, and they were crying when he left the palace. Now, continuing, once I've gone forth, I went out to discover what is skillful, seeking the supreme state of sublime peace. I approached Alara Kalama. My tutor, Alakrama, placed me his pupil. Notice between the underlying portion and then my tutor, Alara Kalama, I put ... I already cut short to this portion. His pupil, or the same position as him. That means now when Prince Siddhartha renounced, his name was normally would refer to him as ascetic Gautama. Now, it is important to note that when you refer to this person who later became the Buddha, we do not say the Buddha was born. Buddhas are never born, and Buddhas don't renounce because the Buddha has already renounced. Okay, it's a renunciate. So we normally say Prince Siddhartha was born in Lumbini Garden, and then from the palace, he goes to become a renunciant. He renounces palace life. He becomes known as ascetic Gautama. So at this point, when he approaches Alara Kalama to be his teacher, he is known as ascetic Gautama. He is not the Buddha. He's not enlightened yet. So after he has learned from Alara Kalama, practice whatever Alara Kalama has taught, then he will say, my tutor, Alara Kalama, placed me, his pupil, at the same position as him and honored me with lofty praises. Then it occurred to me, this teaching doesn't lead to disillusionment, dispassion, cessation, peace, insight, awakening, and extinguishment. It only leads as far as rebirth in the dimension of nothingness. Now here, reference to rebirth in the dimension of nothingness is referring to the 31 planes of existence. And this is very, very high up, which means it is in the formless planes. We're not talking about Deva worlds. We're not talking about Brahma worlds. This is way up beyond the Brahma worlds also. So yes, is referring to rebirth in the dimension of nothingness. Now, realizing that this teaching was inadequate, I left disappointed. This statement is very important because frequently when you walk around talking to other Buddhists or other people, especially the Hindus, they refer to the Buddha having learned from the Hindus. He took Hinduism and massage it and make it Buddhism. Here, and it says that, oh, his teacher was Alara Kalama, who was a Hindu, they claim. In the first place, during the Buddha's time, there was no Hinduism. Hinduism was not born yet. So in short, Hinduism is actually younger than Buddhism. So here, Ascetic Gautama found that the teachings and the training of Alara Kalama was inadequate. He was disappointed and he left this teacher. I set out to discover what is skillful, seeking the supreme state of sublime peace. That I approached Udaka, son of Rama. Usually we refer to Udaka Ramaputta. Okay, Ramaputta is the son of Rama. So Udaka is the son of Rama, or Udaka Ramaputta. And the same story, what they call, repeats itself. He learns everything that Udaka, the son of Rama, has to teach. And after that, ask any more you can teach, nothing else. And he was found the teaching inadequate, and he also left Udaka, the son of Rama. And this page here, most of you are familiar. After that, he said that since no teachers, these Alara Kalama and Udaka were the famous teachers in those days, and they didn't know the answers that Ascetic Gautama was seeking. So he decided to, as we call it, do it yourself, DIY. And the trend in those days was, the wisdom in those days is, when you want to seek answers to your questions, you go into ascetic practices. And some of these pictures show him as an ascetic. These are not carvings or statues or paintings of Buddha. This is still ascetic Gautama, not yet enlightened. Now here in another sutta, the Pasarasi Sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 26, reference given at the bottom of this page, the Buddha talks about the two quests, noble or ignoble. So monks, there are these two quests, the noble and the ignoble quest. And the quest meaning searchers or pariyesana. Now, what is the ignoble quest? It's when someone who is themselves liable to be reborn seeks what is also liable to be reborn. Themselves liable to grow old, fall sick, die, grow, and become corrupted. And what should be described as liable to be reborn? Partners, that means your spouse or your good friend in life, children, male and female born servants, people to work in your rich man's house, goats, sheep, chickens, pigs, elephants, cattle, gold and currency are liable to be reborn. Now, these attachments are liable to be reborn. Someone who is tied, infatuated, and attached to such things, themselves liable to be reborn, seeks what is also liable to be reborn. And what should be described as liable to grow old? Again, the same list: partners, children, male, female, bond servants, and so on. So these attachments are liable to grow old. Someone who is tied, infatuated, attached to such things, themselves liable to grow old, seeks what is also liable to grow old. And what should be described as liable to fall sick? And the same thing, he goes and describes parents, children, male and female bond servants, and so on. And these attachments are liable to fall sick. Someone who is tied, infatuated, and attached to such things, and so on. And what should be described as liable to die? So your partners and children, male and female bond servants, and so on, and someone who is tied, infatuated, and attached to such things, themselves liable to die, seek what is also liable to die. And what is described as liable to sorrow? Partners, children, and the same list. And these attachments are liable to sorrow. So for someone who is themselves liable to sorrow, seek something which is liable to sorrow, this is known as the ignoble quest. And what is described as liable to corruption? Again, partners, children, and so on. So, and coming straight to the conclusion, this is the ignoble quest. And what is the noble quest? It's when someone who is themselves liable to be reborn, understanding the drawbacks in being liable to be reborn, seeks that which is free of rebirth, the supreme sanctity from the yoke, extinguishment, themselves liable to grow old, fall sick, die, sorrow, and become corrupted. Understanding the drawbacks in these things, they seek that which is free of old age, sickness, death, sorrow, and corruption, the supreme sanctity from the yoke, extinguishment. And of course, the sutta normally will go through the detailed description of each and every one of the listed. So concluding, this is the noble quest. Of course, after his long 6 years of practicing, he found that the practice was a waste of time because the asceticism was very painful, as described in some of the other suttas. And he changed method. He recalled when he was a young boy, approximately 7 years old, sitting under the rose apple tree when his father was at the plowing festival, and he meditated as a very young boy, and as ascetic Gautama, he recalled when he was a young boy. He used that method of meditation, which was definitely different from those taught by Alara Kalama and Uddaka Ramaputta, and even those practiced by ascetics. So soon after that, he attained full self-awakening at the age of 35 years. Now, just a note, you should know this by now. Sama Sambuddha. Sama means fully, completely, perfectly. Buddha means awakened or enlightened. The sam in front of the word Buddha, sam means self. So Sama Sambuddha means perfectly or completely self-awakened. The word sam is very important because he had no teachers, not even a small god or big god or whatever go and whisper into his ear. And soon after that, he went to look for who to teach. And this come to this particular sutta, the Bodhi Raja Kumara Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 85, Journey to the Deer Park. I am going to the city of Kasi to roll forth the wheel of Dhamma. In this world that is so blind, I'll beat the deathless drum. Now here, the top left picture indicates that when he left the Bohi tree area, the Uruvela or Bogaya zone, and was walking towards Isipatthana, the deer park, he came across Upaka, a naked ascetic, who was, he looked at the Buddha and he found out that he didn't look like any other ascetics, there was a conversation between them. The details of which are given in another sutta. In fact, the Mahasatipatthana Sutta also describes that. But his final reply to Upaka is, I'm going to the city of Kasi to roll forth the wheel of Dhamma. So that is the fast forward. Now, traveling stage by stage, I arrived at Benares and went to see the group of 5 ascetics. Now, you would know by now, the 5 ascetics in Pali, also known as the Pancha Vagya, Pancha meaning 5, Vagya, the ascetics, who had earlier accompanied the ascetic Gautama in his 6 years of ascetic practices, until the ascetic Gautama realized that those ascetic methods was a waste of time. He had starved himself until he was skin and bone, as given in the earlier photographs I showed you, or other paintings and carvings and so on. He almost died, and he decided to change method. He started to take food when he realized that he needed to strengthen his body, and he recalled the method when he was 7 years old, sitting under the rose apple tree to try that. So he strengthened his body, and when sat underneath the pipal tree and gained enlightenment. That pipal tree, where he gained enlightenment, became known as the Bodhi tree. So when he went to 5 ascetics, they already knew about him. They were with him during the earlier 6 years of ascetic practices. Now, the group of 5 monks saw me coming in the distance and stopped each other, saying, "Here comes ascetic Gautama. He's so indulgent. He strayed from the struggle and returned to indulgence." Why? Because they knew him as an ascetic, and they were in disagreement that they insisted that he should continue the ascetic practice. But ascetic Gautama realized it was futile, and that's why he wanted to change method. When he changed method and started taking food, they left him. So they remember him as the one who was indulgent, who gave up the struggle from their point of view. Now, we shouldn't bow to him or rise for him or receive his bowl and robe, but we can set out a seat. He can sit if he likes. Yet, as I drew closer, the Buddha recalled, the group of 5 ascetics were unable to stop themselves as they had agreed. Some came out to greet me and receive my bowl and robe. Some spread out a seat, while others set out water for washing my feet. But they still address me by name as Reverend. So the Buddha said to them, "Monks, don't address me by name and as Reverend. The realized one is perfected, a fully awakened Buddha. Listen up, monks. I have achieved the deathless. I shall instruct you. I shall teach you the Dhamma. By practicing as instructed, you will soon realize the supreme end of the spiritual path in this very life. You will live having achieved with your own insight the goal for which gentlemen rightly go forth from the lay life to homelessness." But they said to the Buddha, "Reverend Gautama, even by that conduct, that practice, that growing work, you did not achieve any superhuman distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones. How could you have achieved such a state now that you have become indulgent, strayed from the struggle, and fallen into indulgence?" So the 5 ascetics initially still had the conventional ascetic ideology. They hold on to the idea that you must go and practice asceticism maximum to be able to gain enlightenment. They didn't believe the Buddha. So I said to them, the realized one has not become indulgent, strayed from the struggle and fallen into indulgence. The realized one is perfected, a fully awakened Buddha. Now, but for a second time, they said to me, "Reverend Gautama, you have fallen into indulgence." And for a second time, I said to them, "The realized one has not become indulgent." And for a third time, they said to me the same thing. And I said to them, "Monks, have you ever known me to speak like this before?" "No, sir," the 5 mentioned. I was able to persuade the group of 5 monks. Then sometimes I advised 2 monks, while the other 3 went for alms. Then those 3 would feed all 6 of us with what they brought back. Now, this practice of, as Buddhist monks even today from monasteries, some monks are sick or very old and stay back in the temple or monasteries. And the more able ones will go out on Pintacara or alms round to gather food, come back and share the food with those who were not able to go out. So this is the practice as recorded in this particular sutta regarding 2 go out, 3 collect food, or rather 2 stay back, three go out to collect food for six, and then they take turns. The two go out to collect food and feed the six also. Sometimes I advise three monks, while the other two went for alms. Then those two will feed all six of us with what they brought back. So during this period, the Buddha was teaching the group of five. Now we go to the first sermon, the first lecture given by the Buddha. And famously, this sutta mentions monks. These two extremes should not be cultivated by one who has gone forth. What two? Indulgence in sensual pleasures, which is low, crude, ordinary, ignoble, and pointless. And indulgence in self-mortification, which is painful, ignoble, and pointless. So indulgence in sensual pleasures, enjoying themselves. Self-mortification is hurting themselves, punishing their body by not eating, by sleeping on nails, and many of the ascetic practices common in those days. Now, here we sidetrack a little bit to another sutta, the Sukkamala Sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya, AN, Book of 3, Sutta number 38. We talk about the two extremes, which should not be cultivated. Now, here, the Buddha recalls in this particular sutta how he lived, with indulgence in sensual pleasures as Prince Siddhartha. I live in refinement, utmost refinement, total refinement. My father even had lotus ponds made in our palace, one where red lotuses bloom, one where white lotuses bloom, one where blue lotuses bloom, all for my sake. I used no sandalwood that was not from Varanasi. Why? Because Varanasi is, even during the Buddha's time, was a famous business center where all the best, footwear or cloth, and many other things can be found. So I used no sandalwood that was not from Varanasi. Varanasi today, or rather later on in some of the texts you might read, is also known as Benares. My turban was from Varanasi, as were my tunic, my lower garments, or my outer cloak. A white sunshade was held over me day and night to protect me from the cold, heat, dust, dirt, and dew. I had 3 palaces, one for the cold season, one for the hot season, and one for the rainy season. So here, the Buddha describes the 3 seasons in northern India. India doesn't have 4 seasons, they have 3 seasons. During the 4 months of the rainy season, I was entertained in the rainy season palace by minstrels without a single man among them, and they did not once come down from the palace. And indulgence in mortification, which is painful, ignoble, and pointless. And he described the time when he was ascetic Gautama. I went naked, rejecting conventions, licking my hands. Notice, ... a lot of which I have not reproduced here. I did not accept food brought or food made, specially made. I received nothing from a pot, from a bowl. I accepted no fish or meat. I drank no liquor. And so many ... I took food once a day, once every 2 days, once every 7 days, up to once every fortnight. I was an eater of greens or millet or wild rice or grass or cow dung. I lived on forest roots and fruits. I fed on fallen fruits. I would go on all fours to the cow pen when the cattle had gone out and the cow herd had left them, and I would feed on the dung of the young suckling calves. As long as my own excrement and urine lasted, I fed on my own excrement and urine, such was my great distortion in feeding. And so many, notice a lot of ... a lot of detailed description recorded in the Mahasihanada Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 12. So you want to know what ascetic Gautama practice, you can read up this sutta. I thought, suppose I were to take only a little food at a time, only a handful at a time of bean soup, lentil soup, veg soup, or pea soup. So my body became extremely emaciated simply from my eating so little. My limbs became like the jointed segments of the vine stems or bamboo stems. My backside became like a camel's hoof. My spine stood out like a string of beads. My ribs jutted out like the jutting rafters of an old round-down barn. So from here, you look at the picture at the bottom right, you can see skin and bone. He doesn't have a belly. Okay. The skin of my belly became so stuck to my spine that when I thought of touching my belly, I grabbed hold of my spine as well. And when I thought of touching my spine, I grabbed hold of the skin of my belly as well. So such was his, body having shrunk and became extremely emaciated. I would say he was basically severely malnourished. Now, from those supplementary suttas, coming back to the first sermon, avoiding these two extremes, the realized one, or the Buddha, woke up by understanding the middle way of practice, which gives vision and knowledge and leads to peace, direct knowledge, awakening, and extinguishment. Now, the Pali words are mentioned here. Middle way, Majjhima, the practice is called Patipada, gives vision, Chakku, knowledge, Jnana, peace, Upasamaya, direct knowledge, Abhignana, awakening, Sambodhaya, and extinguishing, Nibbanaya. Extinguishing is pointing towards Nibbana. And what is that middle way of practice? It is simply this Noble Eightfold Path. And the list is given here. Right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right immersion or concentration. Now, just a supplementary note, the bottom right picture of a path is of interest. The Noble Eightfold Path is a path. As you can see, the path on the bottom right. The path is an arrangement that brings you or leads you from where you are standing here, looking at the path, to somewhere. Okay, but to go somewhere, you have to walk the path. So the path brings you to the end of its path, which is nobility. That's why hence the word noble. And how many steps are there? There are 8. But it's not called Noble Eight Path. It's called Noble Eightfold Path because all 8 of the elements along this path reinforce and support each other. That's why it's called Eightfold. Otherwise, it would have been called Noble Eight Path. But it is actually Noble Eightfold Path. And you have to do the walking. Nobody can walk on your behalf. Like when you are hungry, you have to eat. Okay. And this is that middle way of practice, which gives vision, knowledge, leads to peace, direct knowledge, awakening, extinguishment. Now here, some commentary or additional notes from other sources that talk about the middle way of practice, which gives vision. Whoever practices the middle path can see and understand things as they are. Now, can see means see with their mind's eye, not necessarily with their their eyeballs. Can see and understand things as they are. When developed, the true nature of the mind and matter is clearly discerned as if seen by the eyes. And what is knowledge? The arising and vanishing of the mind and matter is also discerned as they occur. The nature of impermanence, suffering, and insubstantiality of all mental and material phenomena. Here, the nature of impermanence, anicca, suffering, dukkha, insubstantiality of all mental and material phenomena, anatta, becomes clear with direct experience. Now, this middle way of practice leads to peace. For the one who develops the middle path, because of his awareness, concentration, and wisdom, all mental defilements become reduced and calmed. The practice gives direct knowledge. He sees all aggregates of clinging as dukkha. Aggregates of clinging, panchu, upadana, kanda. Okay, aggregates of clinging as dukkha, the suffering which one holds as I or self. Because of his understanding of the true nature of the mental and material world, there's no more craving, and he realizes that craving is the origin of dukkha. The middle way of practice gives awakening, penetrative insight through which one sees the Four Noble Truths clearly, which has not been seen before. We are talking about going beyond mere intellectual or book knowledge. Extinguishment. It is attainment of the end of dukkha for the one who penetrates the Four Noble Truths with arahata path insight or arahata pala, and also realize the bana with arahata pala, the insight, the fruit of enlightenment. When arahats pass away, it is called attainment of parinibbana, no more existence in the realm of birth, cessation of suffering or cessation of dukkha. Now here, the important statement is when arahats pass away, arahats means the enlightened person, the Buddha is also an arahat. His enlightened students or disciples are also known as arahats. It is called attainment of parinibbana. We do not say that arahats or the Buddha died. Okay, use of such terms show that the person who said it lacks understanding. Why do arahats not die? Because the word death or dying is applied to non-arahats, people like us who are not enlightened. And when we die, we still have ignorance in our psychic. What happens? Death gives rebirth. But arahats are not reborn. So when their body ceases to function, they attain parinibbana. Parinibbana, when someone says so and so attained parinibbana, means that was their last birth. They are not reborn. So any further question as to where is the Buddha now? Where is Venerable Ananda or Sariputta or Moggallana? Who are arahats? Where have they been reborn? That question is irrelevant, does not apply because they have attained parinibbana, no more in samsara. Now, going back to the first sermon. Now, this is the noble truth of dukkha, dukkha ariya satchang. Now, here the Buddha defines what is dukkha. Although the English translation frequently noble truth of suffering, but the word dukkha translated as suffering is highly inadequate. It only indicates one aspect of it. So in the first sermon, the Buddha defines the dukkha. What is dukkha? Rebirth is dukkha. Old age is dukkha. Illness is dukkha. Death is dukkha. Now, association with the dislike is dukkha. Separation from the like is dukkha. And not getting what you wish for is dukkha. But it doesn't end there. In brief, the 5 grasping aggregates are dukkha. Panchu upadana kanda. It's the Pali word actually made up of 5 things. Panchu or pancha meaning 5. Upadana means grasping or holding on tightly. Kanda means aggregates. Okay, 5 grasping aggregates. Panchu upadana kanda. These are some of the very, very important Pali words which may appear in exams, in favorite of examiners. They will ask you, what is Panchu upadana kanda? Basically, the 5 grasping aggregates, and you have to define them. What are these 5, and so on, which we will touch on in future lectures. Now, this is the noble truth of the origin of dukkha. Is the craving that leads to future rebirth. Mixed up with relishing and greed, taking pleasure in various different realms. Realms means places of rebirth, planes of rebirth, and so on. There are 31 planes as the Buddha discovered. That is craving for sensual pleasures, craving for continued existence, craving to end existence. And craving is typically known as tanha. Now, tanha is not desire. Tanha is translated as craving. Desire has another word. Now, tanha, the word craving, points to unwholesome wanting, whereas desires can be wholesome. You can have desire to help people who are poor, who are destitute, who are injured in wars, and so on. So desires can be wholesome, but craving is unwholesome. So tanha is translated appropriately as craving, something unwholesome. Please do not mix up with desires. Though some translators of this sutta mentioned the Buddha said the origin of suffering is desire, which is not quite correct. Best is to use the Pali word tanha. Now, this is the noble truth of the cessation of dukkha, the ending of dukkha, is the fading away and cessation of that very same craving with nothing left over, giving it away, letting it go, releasing it, not adhering to it. And in other suttas, the idea of the blowing out of the flame is commonly referred to. So you cannot say that so and so, the Arahat went here, went there. When you blow out, where does the flame go? For an Arahat, answer is that question does not apply. You cannot use the word, it didn't go anywhere. That basically you go back to the question. The question itself is wrong. Now, dukkha nirodha. Dukkha, suffering, unsatisfactoriness, and so on, as defined earlier. Nirodha means the ending of. So there is that dimension where there is neither earth, nor water, nor fire, nor wind. Neither dimension of the infinitude of space, nor dimension of the infinitude of consciousness, nor dimension of nothingness, nor dimension of neither perception nor non-perception. Neither this world, nor the next world, nor sun, nor moon. And there I say, there is neither coming, nor going, nor stasis, neither passing away, nor arising, without stance, without foundation, without support of any mental object. This, just this, is the end of dukkha. Now, this quote is from the Udana. Udana is a collection of sayings found in the Khuddaka Nikaya of the Tipitaka. It's the Udana Sutta number 8.1. Now, moving again to another verse in the Udana, 8.3 now. There is, monks, an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unfabricated. If there were not that unborn, unbecome, unmade, unfabricated, there would not be the case that emancipation from the bond. Means emancipation means release from the bond, freedom from the bond, become, made, fabricate would be discerned. But precisely because there is an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unfabricated, emancipated from the bond, become, made, fabricated. Fabricated is discern. Discern means to know about, to understand, to have insight into. So that was the two sets of suttas which the Buddha described what Nibbana is. Now, this is the noble truth of the practice that leads to the ending of dukkha. It is simply this noble eightfold path. So the Buddhist practice is always the noble eightfold path. It is not the today I want to practice right speech, and you say that, oh, it is just noble eightfold path. No, you need all eight together. Although you might pay more attention to speech for today or the next week or the next month, but you still need all eight factors to support your practice of right speech, if that is your focus. So right now in the Western world or the secular world, there is a lot of talk about mindfulness meditation. In the first place, the Buddha did not teach mindfulness meditation. The Buddha taught right mindfulness meditation, which itself is one of the factors, or rather part of the full curriculum of practice. The full curriculum is called the Noble Eightfold Path. So you cannot simply chase, oh, I want to practice mindfulness. The Buddha didn't teach that. The Buddha taught Samasati, okay, number 7 on this list. And Samasati is part of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the full syllabus. Then only you say, then you're practicing according to what the Buddha taught. As long as people say, oh, I'm going to practice mindfulness, then they are on their own. The Buddha didn't teach mindfulness. It is their own concoction. Okay, talking quite a lot already. Let us take a short 5-minute break or to drink water or to go to, what do you call, to ease ourselves. I'll be back in 3:20. Okay, now it's 3:50, 3:20, we are back, then we continue. Okay, 3:20 now. Let us resume. Now we elaborate on the Noble Eightfold Path. Aryo Atangiko Mago. Aryo means noble. Atangiko meaning eightfold, and Mago meaning path. Now, right view or right understanding, Samaditi. You will notice that so far up to now, most of the time I use suttas or other suttas or lectures given by the Buddha to explain certain things. Occasionally, I'll refer to some commentaries by certain scholars. And in this case, in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta from the Digha Nikaya, DN, Sutta number 22, and that sutta defines and what is right view. Knowledge with regard to dukkha, knowledge with regard to the origin of dukkha, knowledge with regard to the ending or cessation of dukkha, knowledge with regard to the way of practice leading to the ending of dukkha. This is called right view. In essence, right view means knowledge of the Four Noble Truths. In another sutta, the Michata Sutta, Anguttara Nikaya, Book of 10, Sutta number 103, in a person of wrong view, wrong resolve comes into being. In the person of wrong resolve, wrong speech. In the person of wrong speech, wrong action. In the person of wrong action, wrong livelihood. In the person of wrong livelihood, wrong effort. In the person of wrong effort, wrong mindfulness. In the person of wrong mindfulness, wrong concentration. In the person of wrong concentration, wrong knowledge. In the person of wrong knowledge, wrong release. This is how from wrongness comes failure, not success. Now, this conclusion from the Michata Sutta, if you draw it to the modern industry, the mindfulness industry in the Western world, which is not following the Noble Eightfold Path, in a way, they started off trying to practice mindfulness with a wrong view. And here, right in the middle of this paragraph, in a person of wrong mindfulness, because they are not practicing right mindfulness and not supported and not part of the Noble Eightfold Path, wrong concentration, and then wrong knowledge and wrong release. So all kinds of other problems come up. So some of you may have read elsewhere that some people who practice mindfulness, which is not the part of the Noble Eightfold Path, they encounter problems during their meditation because they are not practicing right mindfulness. They're just practicing some kind of mindfulness, often referred to as Micca Sati or wrong mindfulness. In yet another sutta, the Mahachata Risaka Sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 117, and how is right view, the forerunner. So you always must start with right view before you talk about other aspects down the list. Right view or right understanding. One discerns wrong view as wrong view and right view as right view. And this is one's right view. And what is wrong view? Example, there is nothing given, nothing offered, nothing sacrificed. There is no fruit or result of good or bad actions. There is no this world nor next world, no mother, no father, no spontaneously reborn beings, no Brahmans or contemplatives who, faring rightly and practicing rightly, proclaim this world and the next after having directly known and realized it for themselves. This is wrong view. One tries to abandon wrong view or to enter into right view. This is one's right effort. One is mindful to abandon wrong view or to enter and remain in right view. This is one's right mindfulness. Thus, these three qualities, right view, right effort, and right mindfulness, run and circle around right view. So you can see, even right view requires right effort and right mindfulness, especially to support it, to make it whole, to make it perfect. Hence, the need for other factors in the Noble Eightfold Path to support any particular aspect. In this case, example is given for right view. What about right thought or resolve? Sama Sankappo. And what is right resolve? Being resolved or intention, intending on renunciation. The Pali word is nekamma, on freedom from ill will, vyapada, on harmlessness, avihimsa. This is called right resolve or right intention. And in the Mahacatarisaka Sutta, and how is right view? The forerunner. One discerns wrong resolve as wrong resolve. The right resolve has as right resolve. And what is wrong resolve? Being resolved on sensuality, on ill will, on harmlessness. This is wrong resolve. One tries to abandon wrong resolve or to enter into right resolve. This is one's right effort. One is mindful to abandon wrong resolve and to enter and remain in right resolve. This is one's right mindfulness. Thus, these three qualities of right view, right effort, and right mindfulness run and circle around right resolve or right intention. So even in right thought or resolve or right intention, the aspects of right view or understanding, right effort, and right mindfulness are needed to help you to achieve the right thought or resolve or intention. Now, moving to another interesting sutta, the Kunda Kamaraputta Sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of 10, Sutta number 176. And how is one made pure in three ways by mental action? There is a case where a certain person is not covetous. Covetous meaning someone who is extremely greedy, to the extent the person is able to rob another person or just simply take over somebody else's property by force. He does not covet the belongings of others, thinking, oh, that what belongs to others would be mine. He bears no ill will and is not corrupt in the resolves of his heart. He thinks, may these beings be free from animosity, free from oppression, free from trouble, and may they look after themselves with ease. He has right view and is not warped in the way he sees things. There is what is given, what is offered, what is sacrificed. There are fruits and results of good and bad actions. There is this world or the next world. There is mother and father. There are spontaneously reborn beings. There are Brahmans and contemplatives who, faring rightly and practicing rightly, proclaim this world or the next after having directly known and realized it for themselves. This is how one is made pure in these three ways by mental action. Now, moving on to the third aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path, right speech, samavacca. And what is right speech? Abstaining from lying, abstaining from divisive speech, from abusive speech, and from idle chatter. This is called right speech. This is from the sutta called the Magga Vibhanga Sutta. Magga means path, Vibhanga means analysis. So this sutta has many aspects of it. Analysis of the path, found in Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 45, sutta number 8. And how is right view the forerunner? So again, it always starts with right view that directs the other factors along the Noble Eightfold Path. One discerns wrong speech as wrong speech and right speech as right speech. And what is wrong speech? Lying, divisive tale-bearing, abusive speech, and idle chatter. This is wrong speech. One tries to abandon wrong speech and to enter into right speech. This is one's right effort. One is mindful to abandon wrong speech and to enter and remain in right speech. Now, here, just before going on, notice the sentence before it. One is mindful to abandon something. So mindfulness is used to practice each and every one of those factors along the Noble Eightfold Path. So one is mindful to abandon wrong speech and to enter and remain in right speech. This is one's right mindfulness. Thus, these three qualities of right view, right effort, and right mindfulness run and circle around right speech. So this is from the Mahasatipatthana Risaka Sutta. Now, moving yet to another sutta called the Vacha Sutta or Subhasita Vacha Sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya Book of 5, Sutta number 198. Monks, a statement endowed with 5 factors is well spoken, not ill spoken. It is blameless and unfaulted by knowledgeable people. Which 5? It is spoken at the right time. It is spoken in truth. It is spoken affectionately. It is spoken beneficially. It is spoken with a mind of goodwill. So these are the 5, what do you call, 5 factors for well-spoken speech. Notice the aspect of timing is also very important, as opposed to just merely talking about truth, beneficial, and so on. For the person who transgresses in one thing, I tell you, there is no evil deed that is not to be done. Which one thing? This, telling a deliberate lie. The person who lies, who transgresses in this one thing, transcending concern of the world beyond, there's no evil he might not do. So liars are extremely, extremely dangerous, the Buddha declares here. And this sutta or quote is taken from the Iti Vuttaka, a book found in the Kuddaka Nikaya of the Sutta Pitaka. Number 4, Sama Kamanto, right action. What is right action? Abstaining from taking life, abstaining from stealing, abstaining from unchastity. This is called right action. And this is from the Magga Vibhanga Sutta. Back to the Mahasatipatthana Sutta. And how is right view the forerunner? So again, even in right action, right view comes first. One discerns wrong action as wrong action and right action as right action. This is one's right view. And what is wrong action? Killing, taking what is not given, illicit sex. This is wrong action. One tries to abandon wrong action and to enter into right action. This is one's right effort. One is mindful to abandon wrong action and to enter and remain in right action. This is one's right mindfulness. Thus, these three qualities, right view, right effort, and right mindfulness, run and circle around right action. Now, many of you will recognize that right action, at least the three things mentioned, abstaining from taking life, abstaining from stealing or taking what is not given, abstaining from illicit sex or unchastity, is already 3 out of the 5 precepts. And notice, one is mindful to abandon. So mindfulness is required for one to practice at least the first 3 of the 5 precepts. And the fourth one, of course, in the 5 precepts is to do with speech, which already covered earlier, also requiring mindfulness. So the 5 precepts itself for a layperson requires mindfulness and effort. Now, in the Kunda Kamaraputa Sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya Book of 10, Sutta number 176, and how is one made pure in 3 ways by bodily action? There is a case where a certain person, abandoning the taking of life, abstains from taking life. He dwells with his rod laid down, his knife laid down, scrupulous, merciful, compassionate for the welfare of all living beings. Abandoning the taking of what is not given, he abstains from taking what is not given. He does not take, in the matter of a thief, things in a village or a wilderness that belong to others and have not been given by them. Abandoning sensual misconduct, he abstains from sensual misconduct. He does not get sexually involved with those who are protected by their mothers, their fathers, their brothers, their sisters, their relatives, or their dharma, those with husbands, those who entail punishments, and even those crowned with flowers by another man. Now, this is how one is made pure in 3 ways by bodily action. So in a way, this portion that is described the aspect of abstaining from sensual misconduct is talking about the 3rd precept in the what do you call 5 precepts. Moving to number 5, right livelihood, sama avjivo. And what is right livelihood? There is a case where a disciple of the noble ones, having abandoned dishonest livelihood, keeps his life going with right livelihood. This is called right livelihood. And how is right view the forerunner? One discerns wrong livelihood as wrong livelihood and right livelihood as right livelihood. And what is wrong livelihood? Scheming. In today, we call it the scams and so on, cheating cases. Scheming, persuading, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. This is wrong livelihood. One tries to abandon wrong livelihood and to enter into right livelihood. This is one's right effort. One is mindful to abandon wrong livelihood and to enter and remain in right livelihood. This is one's right mindfulness. Thus, these 3 qualities of right view, right effort, and right mindfulness run and circle around right livelihood. In the Dikajanu or the Vyagapacha Sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya Book of 8, Sutta number 54, herein, Dikajanu, a householder, knowing his income and expenses, leads a balanced life, neither extravagant nor miserly, knowing that thus his income will stand in excess of his expenses and not his expenses in excess of his income. So for most of us, it is common sense, but there are those people who do not know how to manage their expenses or their livelihood. And this is interesting. In the Vanija Sutta, Anguttara Nikaya Book of 5, Sutta number 177, a lay follower should not engage in 5 types of business. Which 5? Business in weapons, business in human beings, like slavery, business in meat, butchers, and selling of fish, business in intoxicants, and business in poison. Why? Because all these hurt other living beings. So right livelihood includes appropriate choice of occupation also. Number 6, right effort, Sama Vayamo. And what monks is right effort? 1. There is a case where a monk generates desire, endeavors, activates persistence, upholds and exerts his intent for the sake of the non-arising of evil, unskillful qualities that have not yet arisen. The key aspect is unskillful or evil qualities that have not yet arisen. So no evil has arisen. So the practitioner generates the desire and endeavors, means he pursues. They make sure that all these unskillful qualities do not come up in the mind and then put into practice by that person. Number 2, he generates desire, endeavors, activates persistence, upholds and exerts his intent for the sake of abandonment of evil, unskillful qualities that have arisen. So number 2 here is whatever evil or unskillful qualities within one that is already there, then you try to abandon it. Okay, the desire to abandon all this, to give up. So number 1 is talking about things that have not arisen, evil things, don't start doing if you have not been doing it. The second one is whatever evil that you may have been doing, however little or a lot, try to abandon it. Number 3, he generates desire, endeavors, activates persistence, upholds and exerts his intent for the sake of arising of skillful qualities that have not arisen. So here, the number 1 and number 2 talks about unskillful qualities. Number 3 and number 4 talks about skillful qualities. In this case, skillful qualities that have not arisen, then you want to generate a desire to learn how to do skillful things, which you have not yet started doing. So number 4, he generates desire, endeavors, activates persistence, upholds and exerts his intent for the maintenance, non-confusion, increase, plenitude, development, and cultivation of skillful qualities that have arisen. This monk is called right effort. So number 4 things talks about skillful qualities that you may already be doing, maybe a little bit, maybe middling, maybe a lot. Please develop it further. Not just maintain, but increase it, plenitude, develop, and culmination. Do a lot of these skillful qualities. So number 3 and number 4 in this list talks about skillful qualities. 1 is you have not been doing these skillful qualities. Please learn about it and start doing. And number 4 here talks about skillful qualities which you have in your character, but please do more of it. Okay, culmination, development and culmination. Culmination, bring it to a higher level of these skillful qualities. So 1 and 2 talks about unskillful qualities. 3 and 4 talks about skillful qualities. So all these 4 compose Sama Vayamo, right effort. Now here is another take regarding effort. This is Sona Sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya Book of 6, Sutta number 55. Some of you may have heard about this sutta. As Venerable Sona was meditating in seclusion after doing walking meditation until the skin of his soles was split and bleeding, this train of thought arose in his awareness of the Buddha's, the Blessed One's disciples who have aroused their persistence. I am one, but my mind is not released from the effluence through lack of clinging or substance. Now my family has enough wealth that would be possible to enjoy wealth and make merit. What if I would? What if I were to disavow the training and return to the lower life, enjoy wealth and make merit? Now, return to the lower life means he want to disrobe. This venerable want to disrobe and become a lay person again. The higher life is often regarded as being a monastic. Then the Buddha, as soon as he perceived With his awareness, the train of thought in Venerable Sona's awareness, as a strong man might stretch out his bent arm or bend his outstretched arm, disappeared from Vulture's Peak Mountain, appeared in the cool wood right in front of Venerable Sona, and sat down in a prepared seat. Now here we are talking about the Buddha having perceived and read Venerable Sona's thoughts. He used his psychic powers and disappeared. The Buddha himself disappeared from Vulture's Peak, which is outside of Rajagaha, and appeared in front of Venerable Sona and sat down in the prepared seat. Venerable Sona, after bowing down to the Blessed One, sat to one side. As he was sitting there, the Blessed One said to him, "Just now, as you were meditating in seclusion, didn't this train of thought appear to your awareness?" And Venerable Sona admitted, "Yes, Lord." Now, what do you think, Sona? Before, when you were a house dweller, when you was a lay person, were you skilled at playing the veena? Yes, Lord. So he was a musician before he became a monk. What do you think? When the strings of your veena were too taut, was your veena in tune and playable? No, Lord. And what do you think? When the strings of your veena were too loose, was your veena in tune and playable? No, Lord. What do you think? When the strings of your veena were neither too taut nor too loose, but tuned to be the right on pitch, was your veena in tune and playable? Yes, Lord. So here is a picture of a veena. In the same way, Sona, over-aroused persistence leads to restlessness. Overly slack persistence leads to laziness. Thus, you should determine the right pitch for your persistence. Attune the pitch of the five faculties to that, and there pick up your theme. So the Buddha is advising Venerable Sona not to put in too much effort until restlessness comes up, or to be too slack and then laziness sets in. So you need to fine-tune his practice. Yes, Lord, Venerable Sona answered the Blessed One. Then, having given this exhortation to Venerable Sona, the Blessed One, as a strong man might stretch out his arm and bend his outstretched arm, disappeared from the cool wood and reappeared in Vulture's Peak Mountain. So he disappeared from the place where Sona was and went back to the Vulture's Peak area. So after that, Venerable Sona determined the right pitch for his persistence, attuned the pitch of the five faculties, and there picked up his theme. Dwelling alone, secluded, heedful, ardent, and resolute, he in no long time reached and remained in the supreme goal of the holy life, for which clansmen rightly go forth from home into homelessness, knowing and realizing it for himself in the here and now. He knew birth is ended, the holy life fulfilled, task done. There's nothing further for the sake of this world. And thus, Venerable Sona became another one of the Arahats. Venerable Sona, when he tuned his practice, he became enlightened. Number 7, Samasati, right mindfulness. And what is right mindfulness? There is a case where a monk remains focused on the body in and of itself, ardent, alert, and mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. It remains focused on feelings in and of themselves. The mind in and of itself, mental qualities in and of themselves, ardent, alert, and mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. This is called right mindfulness. Now, this is the direct path for the purification of beings for the overcoming of sorrow, lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and distress, for the attainment of the right method, and for the realization of unbinding. Unbinding. Realization or unbinding means realization of nibbana. In other words, the four frames of reference. Chataru Satipatthana. This is from the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, or the great four foundations of mindfulness, from the Digha Nikaya Sutta number 22. Now, from another sutta, one is mindful of to abandon wrong view and to enter and remain in right view. This is one's right mindfulness. One is mindful of to abandon wrong resolve or wrong intention and to enter and remain in right intention. This is one's right mindfulness. One is mindful to abandon wrong speech and to enter and remain in right speech. This is one's right mindfulness. One is mindful to abandon wrong action and to enter and remain in right action. This is one's right mindfulness. One is mindful to abandon wrong livelihood and to enter and remain in right livelihood. This is one's right mindfulness. So again, this one is from the Mahachatarisaka Sutta. So again, right mindfulness looks like covers many of these aspects on the Noble Eightfold Path. 5 factors already. Now, in the Anapanasati Sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 118. Now, Anapana means, and Sati means mindfulness. Anapana means mindfulness of breathing in and breathing out. Now, here in this sutta, the Buddha says, mindfulness of in and out breathing, when developed and pursued, is of great fruit, of great benefit. Mindfulness of in and out breathing, when developed and pursued, brings the 4 frames of reference or 4 foundations of mindfulness to their culmination. The 4 frames of reference, when developed and pursued, bring the 7 factors of awakening to their culmination. Notice the key word is 7 factors of awakening. The 7 factors of awakening, when developed and pursued, bring clear knowing and release to their culmination. Now, how is mindfulness of in and out breathing developed and pursued so as to be of great fruit, of great benefit? There is a case where a monk, having gone to the wilderness, to the shade of a tree, or to an empty building, sits down, folding his legs crosswise, holding his body erect, and setting mindfulness to the fore. Maybe mindfulness to just within about 1 meter in front of him or her. Always mindful. He breathes in, mindful, he breathes out. Breathing in long, he discerns, means he knows, I am breathing in long. Or breathing out long, he discerns, I am breathing out long. Or breathing in short, he discerns, I'm breathing in short. And breathing out short, he discerns, I'm breathing out short. He trains himself. I will breathe in, sensitive to the entire body. He trains himself. I will breathe out, sensitive to the entire body. He trains himself. I will breathe in, calming bodily fabrication. He trains himself. I will breathe out, calming bodily fabrication. He trains himself to breathe in, sensitive to rapture, a kind of happiness, and to breathe out, sensitive to rapture. He trains himself to breathe in, sensitive to pleasure, and to breathe out, sensitive to pleasure. He trains himself to breathe in, sensitive to mental processes, and to breathe out, sensitive to mental processes. He trains himself to breathe in, calming mental processes, and to breathe out, calming mental processes. And the sutta continues. Essentially, this is a meditative centered sutta. And here we're talking about right immersion or concentration, Samma Samadhi, the last in the Noble Eightfold Path. And what is right concentration? There's a case where a monk, quite withdrawn from sensuality, withdrawn from unskillful mental qualities, enters and remains in the first jhana. First jhana is a Pali term referring to in a way is a unit of concentration or tranquility that goes deeper and deeper. So the first one you enter upon is the first jhana, in which there will be rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal, accompanied by directed thought and evaluation. With the stilling of directed thoughts and evaluation, he enters and remains in the second jhana. Rapture and pleasure born of composure, unification of awareness, free from directed thought and evaluation, internal assurance. With the fading of rapture, he remains equanimous, mindful, and alert, and senses pleasure with his body. He enters and remains in the third jhana, of which the noble ones declare, equanimous and mindful, he has a pleasant abiding. With the abandoning of pleasure and pain, as with the earlier disappearance of elation of distress, he enters and remains in the fourth jhana, purity of equanimity and mindfulness, neither pleasure nor pain. This is called right concentration. Now, what monks is the noble right concentration with its supports and requisite conditions. Any singleness of mind equipped with these 7 factors, that is, right view, right resolve, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and right mindfulness, is called noble right concentration with its supports and requisite conditions. Now, this is another interesting sutta, Samadhi Bhavana Sutta. These are the 4 developments of concentration. Which 4? There is a development of concentration that, when developed and pursued, leads to a pleasant abiding in the here and now. There is a development of concentration that, when developed and pursued, leads to the attainment of knowledge and vision. There is a development of concentration that, when developed and pursued, leads to mindfulness and alertness. There is a development of concentration that, when developed and pursued, leads to the ending of the effluence or defilements. In other words, enlightenment. Now, some of you may have heard a lot of talk among meditators, but this verse here, taken from the Dhammapada, verse 372, concerns aspect of meditative concentration and insight. Now, here in one translation by Acharya Buddha Rakita, there is no meditative concentration for him who lacks insight, and no insight for him who lacks meditative concentration. He in whom are found both meditative concentration and insight, indeed, is close to Nibbana. Another translation from the Dhammapada verse 372 by Bhikkhu Sujato, no absorption or no jhana for one without wisdom, and no wisdom for one without jhana. But one with jhana and wisdom, they have truly drawn near to extinguishment or enlightenment, in other words. So both concentration and insight, jhana and wisdom, are required to gain enlightenment. Now, continuing with the first sermon, here again, the Noble Eightfold Path is presented here again. Now, the Buddha, what they call, declares of himself the fully purified 3 perspectives and 12 aspects. Yeah, this is very important, very often coming up in exams. Now, this is the noble truth of suffering, or dukkha. Such was the vision, knowledge, wisdom, realization, and light that arose in me regarding teachings not learned before from another. So he became aware of the noble truth of dukkha. This noble truth of suffering should be completely understood. Such is the vision that rose in me, and so on. This noble truth of dukkha has been completely understood. Now, these three aspects, that means knowing the noble truth of dukkha, and then this second point, the noble truth of dukkha should be completely understood. And the third point, this noble truth of dukkha has been completely understood. This is all with respect to the first noble truth. Three aspects. Notice there are four noble truths, and each noble truth has three perspectives. So 3 times 4 give you 12 aspects with regard to the four noble truths completely. That's why the three perspectives and the 12 aspects is mentioned in the title. So each noble truth has three areas. One is to know the noble truth itself. One is that it has to be, in the first noble truth, should be completely understood. And the third aspect in the first noble truth has been completely understood as far as the Buddha is concerned. Now, moving to the second noble truth, this is the noble truth of the origin of dukkha. Now, this noble truth of the origin of dukkha should be given up. So you have to, of course, the noble truth regarding the origin of dukkha is tanha, craving. So craving or tanha should be given up. And this noble truth of the origin of dukkha has been given up. So the Buddha declares that he knows about the origin of suffering or dukkha, tanha, should be given up and has been given up. So the Buddha has given up tanha. So 3 aspects in this particular noble truth. And then we move on to the third noble truth. This is the noble truth of the ending or cessation of dukkha. This noble truth of the ending of dukkha should be realized. So nibbana should be realized. This noble truth of the ending of dukkha has been realized. So the Buddha has realized nibbana. And this is the fourth noble truth. This noble truth of the practice that leads to the ending of dukkha. Okay, this noble truth of the practice that leads to the ending of the dukkha should be developed, should be cultivated, should be trained. This noble truth of the practice that leads to the ending of dukkha has been developed. So the Buddha declares of himself that he has developed it as regards the fourth noble truth, or in other words, pointing to the Noble Eightfold Path. Noble Eightfold Path should be known, should be developed, and in the case of the Buddha, has been developed. Such was the vision, knowledge, wisdom, realization, and light that arose in me regarding things not learned before from another. Again, the emphasis here is regarding this teaching, not learned before from another. So nobody taught him. There was whatever Brahmanical ideas circulating the religions at the time. There was no idea that the Buddha would use to massage and make it Buddhism. There was no angel, no deva, no God that come and whisper into his ear. Why? Because nobody knew. And the Buddha declares in this first sermon, not learned before from another. Now here is at the bottom of this page are some commentaries, some notes in case you come across elsewhere in other notes and textbooks. That the question posed in this case to Norbu, Norbu, Norbu.ai is a Buddhist AI platform available in multiple languages. Here, of course, I asked in English. You can ask some Dhamma questions, you can reference. So the question here is, are Pariyati, Patipati, and Pativeda mentioned in the Nikayas? Nikayas means in effect, in the Tipitaka. So Norbu has given this answer. While these three concepts of Pariyati, and what is Pariyati? Theoretical understanding. Okay, very often in Dhamma talks, Dhamma speakers will refer to you need to progress from Pariyati to Patipati and finally to Pativeda. So Pariyati, meaning theoretical understanding. You must understand what the Buddha taught. Pati, meaning the practice. So after you understand, you must put it into practice. And Veda, penetration or realization. So Veda is the realization of what you have learned. Now, are fundamental in Buddhist teaching. So Buddhist teaching tradition. And Nobu declares, I am not certain whether these exact terms appear as a threefold classification system in the early Nikayas. Now, these concepts became more systematically organized in later Buddhist literature and commentaries. So the words pariyati, patipati, and pativeda, as far as Nobu is concerned, do not seem to appear in the Nikayas, in any suttas or lectures given by the Buddha. But these terms were introduced in later Buddhist literature and commentaries. Commentary means monastics who have studied, who are very learned, have looked through many suttas and come up with these terms to generally describe the Buddha's approach in teaching the Dhamma. Now, but their essence is certainly present throughout the early texts in different forms and contexts. So their essence, that means the approach. The Buddha often mentioned in some suttas that you must learn the text. The word sutta, S-U-T-A, one T, S-U-T-A, that means you must knowledgeable in what the Buddha taught. You must practice, and of course, with practice, hopefully you get realization. In the way, indirectly, the Buddha has pointed to pariyati, patipati, and pativeda without using these three terms. Okay, continuing, the commentaries will continue in this page also. Now, as long as my true knowledge and vision about these four noble truths was not fully purified in these three perspectives and 12 aspects. As I mentioned, three perspectives means since there are four noble truths, each noble truth had three perspectives. That means to know about the noble truth, that in the case of the first noble truth, that you must understand it and so on. And the third perspective. So 4 times 3 give 12 aspects. I didn't announce my supreme perfect awakening in this world with its gods, Maras, and Brahmas. This population with its ascetics and Brahmins, its gods and humans. But when my true knowledge and vision about these four noble truths was fully purified in these three perspectives and 12 aspects, I announced my supreme perfect awakening in this world. So these three perspectives and 12 aspects is very important. Please be well acquainted with all the iterations. Now, continuing the commentary. Now, for instance, the Buddha often emphasized the importance of both learning the teachings and putting them into practice, as well as the ultimate goal of direct realization. Now, here, Nobu continues to say, however, I cannot make a definitive statement about whether these specific terms appear as a formal threefold system in the Nikayas. It would be better to acknowledge this uncertainty rather than make claims without. Okay, and it continues next page. Now here, the Buddha declares in the first sermon, knowledge and vision arose in me, which means it did not come from through his ears. It arose from him. My freedom is unshakable. This is my last rebirth. Now there will be no more future lives. Now, this statement is very, very, very important because a lot of people, non-Buddhists, and even Buddhists, ask interesting question. Where is the Buddha reborn now? They don't understand. So in the first lecture given by the Buddha, and of course in many other lectures, the Buddha frequently mentions this. This is my last rebirth. So he has been reborn prior to enlightenment. And now that he's become an arahat, the Buddha is an arahat, like all his enlightened disciples. When they become enlightened, that very life becomes their last rebirth. So when they pass away through old age, through sickness or accidents, there is no more rebirth for them. So they attain parinibbana. They don't just die. So now there will be no more future lives. And how does he cure old age, sickness, and death? By not being born again. Because as long you are born, you must die. When you're born, you must and you live a life, and you will encounter what they call old age, sickness, and death. So the way to get rid of old age, sickness, and death is not to be born. Okay, when you're not born, you will not encounter all this. So therefore, this is the Arahat's last birth. That is what the Buddha said. Satisfied, the group of the Panchavagya was happy with what the Buddha said. And while this discourse was being spoken, the stainless, immaculate vision of the Dhamma arose in Venerable Kondanya. Everything that has a beginning has an end. This statement is very interesting because it indicates whenever you see a sutta that certain person quotes this, the sutta mentions this, everything that has a beginning has an end. It means the person has attained the first stage of enlightenment, Sotapan. Not Arahat yet, but Sotapan. Now, continuing the commentary from the last page. Now, if you are particularly interested in tracing the historical development of these terms, I would recommend consulting the early text directly or discussing with a qualified teacher who has expertise in this area. Now, related to this aspect of pariyati, patipati, and pativeda are the terms sachi, yana, Icha yana, and kata yana. Yana means knowledge or insight. Sachi is to do with the truth. Kicha is to do with the practice. Kata is the realization. So here, Norbu has with regard to Kichayana, and in fact, the same analysis, if you were to ask another question, whether there is Katanyana mentioned in the suttas, Norbu will give the same answer. So while Kichayana, knowledge of what is to be done, is an important concept in later Buddhist literature and Abhidhamma traditions. The key word here is later Buddhist literature and Abhidhamma traditions, not mentioned by the Buddha in discussing the Four Noble Truths. Now, and when the Buddha rolled forth the wheel of Dhamma, the earth gods raised a cry. Near Benares, in the deer park of Isipatthana, the Buddha has rolled forth the supreme wheel of Dhamma. And that wheel cannot be rolled back by any ascetic or Brahmin or God or Mara or Brahma or by anyone in the world. Hearing the cry of the earth gods, the gods of the four great kings, Chatumarajika, we humans are number 5 from the bottom or in the 31 plane existence. 4 great kings, the Chatumarajika is number 6, just above us. The gods of the 33, there is Tava Timsa heaven. Gods of Yama, joyful gods is Tusita heaven, for those who are familiar, and it goes up. Okay. And so at that moment, in that instant, the cry soared up to the Brahma realm. And Brahma realm is higher than the Deva realm, very high up. And this galaxy shook and rocked and trembled in an unmeasurable, magnificent light appeared in the world, surpassing the glory of the gods. Then the Buddha expressed his heartfelt sentiment. Kondanya has really understood. Kondanya has really understood. And that's how Venerable Kondanya came to be known as Anya Kondanya. Kondanya who has understood. In the picture at the top right corner of this page, you notice there are 5 ascetics in front of the Buddha. Notice that 4 of them have black hair, and 1 of them on the bottom right has got white hair. Kondanya was one of the wise men that went to the palace in Kapilavatthu during the naming ceremony of the baby Prince Siddhartha. Okay, 35 years ago. Now, it was only this Brahmin Kondanya, the wise man Kondanya, who raised 1 finger. Means he was certain that this baby will grow up to be a great religious teacher. The other 7 Brahmins raised 2 fingers and said that he will either be a great king or a great religious teacher. And who are the other four ascetics who have black hair? They are sons of some of the seven Brahmins that attended the naming ceremony. So Kondanya recruited them, and that's how they got involved with ascetic Gotama. And now as Isipatthana, Kondanya attained Sotapan. The other four, not yet. Only in the second sermon, the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, all five became arahats. So that was the setting of the wheel of Dhamma in motion. So with that, in case, in terms of general Dhamma talk, it is highly recommended that people be familiar with this Dhammapada verse 183, Sabba Papasa Akaranang, Usalasa Upasampada, Sachita Paridapanang, Etang Uddana Sasana, that we should avoid all evil, do good, and purify our minds. This is a teaching of the Buddhas. So this is useful for reminding yourself what to practice today. And in case people ask you, what does Buddhism teach? What did the Buddha teach? You can talk to non-Buddhists with this Dhammapada verse. It's simple to understand. Okay, that's the end of this afternoon's sharing. Saddamo Chirang Titato. May the good doctrine long endure. Sabbe Satta Sukhi Hontu. May all beings be happy. Attached in the PDF, which I will later post in the group, will have further reading, and they will include lecture notes from a previous lecturer of this very same topic, the Four Noble Truths. Brother KC Lee, I will attach his notes. At least he presented it from a slightly different perspective, but essentially the same thing, so that you have the benefit of what I have shared, as well as the video, plus his notes. So you get the best of both worlds. And he has gone through some of the past year questions, which they touch on certain common aspects. So you can, this for your reading pleasure. Okay, I will not go through this. Any questions so far? Perhaps I can stop sharing.
Brother Ananda,
Yes, yes.
I have a question here. I have asked this question before. This is
Not so
about.
clear. Your voice is
Can
not
you
so
hear
clear.
me? Can
Yeah,
you
I
hear
can
me
hear
now?
you. Only thing is not so clear. Let me try to make the audio louder on my side.
Maybe my voice is a problem.
Okay, try again. Yeah, your question.
Can you hear me now better?
Yes, yes, yes.
I have asked this question before. This was a conversation between Buddha and Venerable Sariputta.
Mm,
Buddha asked Sariputta, "What is a stream?" Then the reply was, "Noble Eightfold Path."
mm,
Then the second question to Sariputta by the Blessed One, what is a stream enterer? Who is a stream enterer?
mm,
Then the reply was, one who possesses Noble Eightfold Path.
mm,
Okay, that ends it. There's no further explanation.
mm,
One who possesses the Noble Eightfold Path. In
mm,
other words, the Noble Eightfold Path contain 8 categories: right understanding until right concentration, right?
mm, mm,
So, to my mind, is one who possesses the Noble Eightfold Path, one who understands academically whatever it is. Second is you practice it. Third is that is a difficult one. Realization of this 8 noble path.
mm,
Okay,
mm.
that is to enter Sotapan state.
Okay.
But on the other hand, we have the 10 factors. The 10 factors means the three factors. If you overcome the 3 factors, is the illusion, doubt in the Buddha's teaching, rites and rituals. That also propel you into Sotapan stage. That means towards Sotapati. So now, how to cross-reference between the original Buddhism, early Buddhism, between Buddha and Sariputta, And this later one about self-illusion, doubts, and rights and rituals.
Mhm.
Just to enter the first stage.
Mhm.
That's my question.
Okay, this was dwell. I'm not sure whether you attended Venerable Agachita's workshop, the 2 day workshop, the last workshop before the current coming, the one coming up. If you have attended, then the Bhante Agachita has dwelled on this aspect as mentioned in the particular workbook. But
Uh-huh.
essentially, the idea of knowing and possessing, these are just translations. Possessing means the person has what they call practice. First, he knows about the Noble Eightfold Path. Then he has dwelled in, that means immerse him or herself in the practice of the all the 8 factors deeply.
Okay.
Okay. And what happens as you practice along the path, that person utilizes right effort, right mindfulness, and concentration, of course, guided by right understanding and right intention or right thought or right resolve to what I call lay the foundation of right speech, right action, right livelihood,
Mm,
and so on.
mm,
Those are the basic foundations. And then
okay.
the person moves further, and the person, especially in right effort, where all the not so what they call the unwholesome aspect is slowly given up, and the cultivation of wholesomeness become increased and brought to culmination,
Mm-hmm.
using the factors of right view, right intention, right effort, and with the help of mindfulness and concentration. Now, all these
Yes.
are foundations. Now, you are leading up into deep meditations, and we have a lot of I for one of a better English term lah, idiosyncrasy, some things which in our own mind, due to our many parts birds with our own things, ideas and notions which we cling to, plus our present life taught by our parents, our encounter with other people, our readings, our meditation, and so on. We have
Uh-huh.
developed and massaged all the previous existences way of thinking, and certain ideas which we hold dear, and certain ideas which we don't bother about, and so on. Each of us are unique, although we are in the same family, maybe brother and sisters, but we are rather unique in samsara. So what happens is that with mindfulness, we dwell in and slowly weaken our attachment to all those wrong ideas, wrong views.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
slowly the wrong views, uh, uh, what they call, take a hold. But of course, wrong views are wrong views because they are just, for many of us, it is all theoretical book reading.
Mhm.
Or some people might call it coffee table conversations.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
so the issue is now we are going into mindfulness and concentration with the efforts given in right effort. What happens is that we dwell in and see for ourselves. Now we are not what they call pointing our attention or mindfulness to something outside. Outside is all you can say it could happen to others, but now you are looking within yourself, the things like that happen within yourself. So if you have gone for meditation retreats, especially the insight according to the Satipatthana type of meditations, uh, what may the initial practices are getting you to pay attention to develop greater and greater depths of mindfulness to even a simple thing called breathing in and breathing out. So for many people attending Dharma talks in many societies, you see mindfulness of breathing in and breathing out. So some people might say, hey, breathing in simple ma, just breathe in lah. But when you read the sutta, like I mentioned just now, the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha goes in and dwell in the what I call basic level, That means when you breathe in long, you know you are breathing in long.
Mhm.
You're breathing in
Okay.
short, you know. Now, right now, which means your in breath is one thing, your out breath is one thing. What is the nature of your in breath? Do you know? How well acquainted are you with your own in breath? And it varies with time. Even in one meditation sitting, say 1 hour, you can have variations in your in breathing within
Yes.
that 1 hour sitting. Even your out breathing have variations. No two are the same. And each session may have other variations. Sometimes in breathing could be jagged. In breathing, it can be fast, it can be slow. Out breathing similarly. And then not to mention, between in breathing and out breathing, it doesn't mean that immediately you breathe in, you will immediately breathe out. Sometimes there is this immediate breathe out. Sometimes there is a gap. Some are short gaps, some are medium length gaps, and some are long gaps. It means you breathe in, then you like nothing else happens after that. Then suddenly you breathe out. You are not controlling it. You are just mindful of it, observing what is going on. And then after you breathe out, sometimes you immediately breathe in, and sometimes there's the gap is a bit middle length, and sometimes even longer. And there's so many, and all these exercises as prescribed in the Satipatthana Sutta as well as and referred to in the Anapanasati Sutta is getting you to increase, to make it greater, your mindfulness deeper and deeper and greater. Okay. So when you go in, you are getting acquainted not with the outside world, with yourself, with natural phenomena. You are the natural phenomena. Now, as you go deeper and deeper, your mindfulness is able to discern things like your pain. How do you react to the pain? What is your feeling? As feeling appears, as feeling stays around, feelings disappear, and slowly you get acquainted with all. Slowly your defilements will come up, and you want to be aware of them. And then when you are aware of them, you will realize for yourself, because you are the one experiencing all this and you are mindful of this, that all these are not important. Your mind begins to say that, hey, why am I so attached to all this? You will come to the conclusion. Although the Buddha mentions it in the sutta that you should give up and all that kind of thing, but that is called what the Buddha tells you, like something written in a book. But when you spend a lot of time deep in meditation, you will come up with your own conclusions. Your inner self will come up with conclusions and say, why am I still so attached? Why have I been so attached to all these feelings of pleasure, of pain, and other? So your mind will itself turn away from all this. And slowly, those some of the factors, the 10 factors, the Sangyojana, will slowly be given up by yourself. It is not forced, it's not pushed. You yourself will come to your own realization that, hey, it's silly of me to hold on to this. You will naturally just let go. That letting go is the early stages of insight knowledge and later on enlightenment. Okay, I'm not so sure. Have you gone for retreats, meditation retreats?
No, 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 not those.
And if you need to go for it, then you can experience all this. I'm not talking about those that uh, in Malaysia there are meditation retreats based on insight. I'm talking about those Satipatthana type of things. Even in the meditation retreats, they have sessions where 1 hour you sit, 1 hour you walk. And in walking, you'll be surprised. You didn't know there are a lot of things you can learn from mere walking. Everybody will scold you and say, hey, walking is walking lah. I've been walking for 40, 50 years. I don't know how to walk, man. But when you go for a meditation retreat and you are barefooted in the meditation hall, you begin to learn things that you didn't know you felt before. So you get acquainted with your, not just how you walk, but what are your sensations and the sole of your feet, the movement of your ankle, and so on. And the greater your mindfulness, the more detail you can experience, the more feelings, sensations of your foot, just a foot, the sole of your feet, right leg, left leg, and all those kind of things, the position of your foot, and whether you're walking on cement floor, on parquet flooring, or tile floor, or whatever, you get the sensations, Then and then you go for interview, report to your teacher. Teacher will advise you how to continue and any practical difficulties you may have. So for you to understand better, appreciate better what the sutta is talking about, I recommend that if you're in for it, to learn a little bit beginner classes on meditation, especially the insight type, Satipatthana based type, and then sign up for some meditations. I mean, start off with maybe 1 day,
Thank
3 days, five
Thank you,
days.
brother.
Okay.
Your advice is helpful, very, very helpful to me. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Any other questions? you just a note, you notice my sharing slides earlier. As I mentioned earlier, I almost quote exclusively from the suttas, so you know exactly where they come from. Excerpts from the suttas. If you want to read the whole sutta, the references are given in the slides already, which I will share with you in the notes. And exam will not be so detailed, but the slides will be more than enough already. Okay, so if there are no further questions, let me just compose or rather edit the slides to take out unnecessary stuff, and I'll share in the PDF in the WhatsApp group, so that you can, as I mentioned earlier, further reading that I included the notes that were shared by the previous presenter, Brother KCD, on the same topic, so that you have the benefits of mine and his. Okay. So if
Thank
that's the
you,
case,
brother.
so good evening to everyone. See you next week.